All right. DaJuan Johnson.
Hi.
Don't even know how to start this conversation. I just said to you off air, but I'm going to say it to you on air as well. Thank you. Thank you times a million for being here. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, well, first of all, I'm a dad. I think you just saw that, right?
I did.
You know, it's important for me to always start that off that way, because before I get into the actor and the awesome life coach and coach, with Think Bigger coaching, I like to start with the dad, because I think a lot of what I do right now is a secret love letter to parents, right? It's my secret, like, we can do this. Even though we're as we are striving for our career as actors, as we are striving for our career to be better coaches, we can do this. And I think, as you saw before we hit record, it's going to be a little messy. It's going to be a little messy. It's going to be like, find your shoe, and then it's here I am. So I start with dad always, so people they know that. I'm also an actor, and I like to say successful actor. I think we have to put that out there.
Yeah.
I am on Amazon's longest running show, BOSCH, and we are getting ready to start our seventh and final season. And everybody's like, oh, seventh final. I was like, but no, we have to look at it like, what's next? Right? How exciting are we for what's next? And so I'm really excited to end the season, but also, the horizon of what's coming up, because we can't sometimes start something amazing if we're not ready to let go of some things, right? And this has been an amazing 7 seasons, and I just am ready to put a awesome pin in Pierce and then move on. And then I'm a coach, and I work with actors. My big thing is, we can talk about this as well. I went and got certified to be a life coach between season 1 and 2 of BOSCH, because I felt like there was just something missing, that I was only out there being, it felt like I was only putting money into my own bank, literally and figuratively, right? And so I wanted to get back out there and get on purpose and get on mission. And it felt like this was my path. And so now I work with actors, helping them skip the line.
I was going to say, you have this amazing shirt on right now for listeners who don't know. Will you just explain it real quick?
Because yes, one of the things that I believe that when I was coming up as an actor, there wasn't anybody who was doing what I'm trying to do, who was like, hey, maybe go take this class, maybe go this way. Here's some things we can sit down and skip this proverbial line. And actors are in this line. They don't know it, but they're doing it. They think 1 + 1 = 2, and it doesn't have to be that way, And so if I can be that person for actors, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
And I must say, as I was an actor for a really long time. Now I'm a full-time coach, but I literally just got chills, because it's like, especially for non-equity, or for I don't really know the film and TV industry quite as well as the theater industry, but it was like, you had to, what everyone would call, pay your dues. Yes. And it was always this scrambled eggs mess, it felt like, almost, where you were just like, I guess I'm taking this action, and I guess I'm getting here. And it wasn't until I quite literally absorbed from my mentors, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. I'm going to get to the line. I'm going to be number 1 on the list. I'm going to do all of this. And that's when things started to go oh, this is what you want. I see. And things started to come. So it's like, we as I'll say, as creatives, even we forget that sometimes we can let it be easy and let it be simple.
Yeah.
I was actually just on a coaching call, and we were talking about how complexity is the enemy of execution.
Ooh,
and that's a Tony Robbins quote. I cannot even take credit for it. I wish I could, but how that is just, when we make things really simple, that's when we start to see the quote unquote light. So I just love that you do that.
I use a quote that it's not mine. I'm sure it's somebody else who said it. One of my friends said it to me, and it's my goal is to always send the elevator back down. Right. And so
I got chills.
that is what I'm doing. And I personally don't like to say pay your dues, because I think what that is group actor think. And I
Yes.
always
Oh my
want to
gosh.
get people out of group actor thing, which is the same thing about the proverbial line, right?
Mhm.
And the group actor's like, no, you got to get a co-star, then you got to go to the guest star, then you got to go. And I'm like, well, what if
Doesn't
you
work
could
that
skip
way.
that line? What
Mhm.
if you could, like, you know, yes, I want you to train and I want you to know all the things like you said, going and getting a line at 4 a.m. or getting up at 4 a.m. and
Sure,
getting a line.
yeah.
All that stuff is important to know. But what if you get in that line and you're like, I wonder if there's a different way to do this, right? That's the exciting stuff. That's the ticket. Because what we do is we get in that line and we're like, everybody else is in this line, so I might as well get in it too. You
Mhm.
don't have to. What if you could skip the line?
Literally, something I want to point out for listeners specifically, because we talk a lot about questions on here and how questions lead to focus, which leads to energy. And when you ask empowering questions like, what if there's another way? What if there's an easier way? What if I can skip the line? When you ask those types of questions, your brain will start to focus on the answers, and your energy, the energy that you produce, will be completely different than the, well, this is the way. Ugh, what if this audition doesn't go well today? What if I suck today? What if that little tickle in my throat is actually something that's going to ruin my whole day? Like, so on and so forth. And we forget that we can ask better questions.
Successful people ask better questions.
Oh, that's good.
Right?
Yeah.
They ask better questions, but more importantly, what I think you got into right there was the neuroscience of it all, right? And what we people don't warning, guys, warning, we're going to talk science.
I love it. No, they're used to it with me talking about science.
All right, they're used to it. But it's like your brain is actively seeking data to affirm the thoughts that you are thinking. So they're actively seeking data that when you're saying my throat is hurting, you're like, oh, it is hurting. Oh, I felt another tickle. So why don't we think better thoughts so that we can get better results, right? And take better action. I always want to put that in there because I think a lot of people think that thoughts are the action. They think that mindset is the action. Mindset and thoughts are not the action, everybody. Action is the action. And when we do more action, we can course correct.
I always like to look at it. I think that's freaking brilliant. And I want to put it in a different context as well. I always talk about how there's your state, your story, and your strategy. And a lot of people skip state and story and they go straight to strategy. And so they take all this messy action, but they have a crappy story. They have a crappy state backing them up. And then they're just like, well, I'm getting bummer results. So like, what's going on? When you change your state, when you start to believe better things, tell yourself a better story, ask better questions, the strategy you take, it might be the same, but you're going to get different results, or you're going to start seeking different strategy, and that will give you different results every time, hands down, every time. Wow, I could talk to you for hours, but
I mean, we can do this. You get two coaches on, and we're like, Coach Ed.
Oh yes, neuroscience. I do want to ask, so I know you kind of touched on that it was through like between season 2 and 3, but how did you discover life coaching? How did this become a part of your life?
Well, if you talk to any of my friends, they would tell you that DaJuan's always been a life coach. And I did. This is when I told them I'm going to go, get a certified to be a life coach. They were like, "You've already been a life coach. Now you're just going to get some cool tools to talk about neuroscience, to talk about state strategy, like you were saying, and story." And I found it because I was meditating in between season 1 and 2, and I kept asking in my meditation, use me. I kept asking, what else is possible, right? That's what I kept thinking in my meditation. And it came up that I loved acting and I loved working with people. And I was like, I wonder if I can put these two together. And so I think I wasn't really into Oprah. I was really into self-help books, and I was really into Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at that time.
Yep.
And I was like, I wonder if I can go do this. And I started just trying to figure out what that would look like. I didn't force it, what it would look like. And life coaching came to me, and I was like, I wonder if I can get certified to do this. And then I just went down that hole, and it was this beautiful exploration into self, but also into how I could really help my fellow actors, help myself. It's really about yourself, and we're really getting into it. It's really about helping yourself, but it made sense because there were times even before this moment that when actors would come from my alma mater, or actors would come out here at the restaurant I worked at, they're like, DaJuan, you're so far ahead. What are you doing? And I would sit with them at the 101 Cafe in California and bring them my folder. And I'm like, these are the steps I took. right? And so here's the stuff that blah, 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 blah. And I loved that. I also used to do power groups with just my actor friends. It's kind of like when you're like a little kid and you're like playing house and you're like, you guys are going to come and listen to me, like, you know, get ahead. And I used to do that. And my friends will tell you 12, 15 years ago, I used to do power groups with them where I would just run them. And then they would just come and we would just like, you know, up level our game. And so I really just started to like think about how can I take all of that and get on mission and get on purpose and still go.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Did you expect that answer?
No, I did not. I did not. Can you tell? Well, okay. So then I have a follow-up question because you mentioned that you'd already been involved in like, you loved Oprah and self-help books and meditating.
Yep.
How did that part of your life come about? Or has that always been there?
No, that came in college. That came in college when that was my first real introduction to self-help books. And it was right around the time when Don't Sweat the Small Stuff and Chicken Soup for the Soul had come out. And what I remember is somebody gave me, I don't know how that happened. Somebody gave me Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And I was like, all right, I'll read this. No, that's not what happened. Actually, I was a hall director, or residence hall director in the University of Florida, at the University of Florida, and they were all touchy-feely, and all of that was happening. Right, I get it now. And somebody gave me the book there, and when I read this, I remember thinking it was this one little passage. This is going to be so silly. One little passage about driving in traffic or road rage, and there's this little thing that said, when this person cuts you off, when the next person cuts you off, instead of yelling at them, think to yourself like, oh, I remember when I was in a rush one time, or I remember when that guy must be in a rush. It's just like the way you shifted your thought on it instead of like, F you, you know what I mean? Instead of yelling at them or getting so frustrated, really just thinking that. And I thought to myself at that moment, what we have control over our thoughts. We can think a better thought here. We don't have to go down the default setting, the programming that we've had from, and I remember being mind blown by that one little driving and like thing in the book. And I was like, wow. And that started my whole exploration. And I went on and I just kept growing from there. And I say Oprah again because Oprah's always been like a backdrop of all of our lives. I think, right? It's been it's like a song. She's been a current, like, you know. But I used to get her magazines in college, and something she said about a relationship that I'd gotten out of that was really horrible, and I had gotten out of it, and finally, and I remember reading a passage about Ellen, who was in a relationship or something like that, out of her books. And Ellen said, I didn't turn the mirror, you know, to look at the other person and say that person was so bad to me. I turned it to myself and said something to the effect of, what was so wrong with me that I allowed all that to happen? Right? And so what that did was with me is like, it furthered that exploration on myself. Right. And I just dive deeper and I just really just got on that. That's a long answer, guys. I'm so sorry you guys had to listen to all of that.
This is fantastic. No, keep going, please.
It really just started that.
It shows that it can come from literally, I love the phrase of life is happening to or for us, not to us. And it shows that like literally someone can hand you a book and your entire life can change. It's funny.
If you're open to it.
That's a good point. That's a lovely little caveat. One of my, I love that you mentioned the road rage thing. One of my favorite things when I was first starting to play around with perspective and mindset, and I'm lucky. I grew up in this field and I have known this for a long time. But I was like, I knew it, but I wasn't living it. So I didn't really know it. So I was driving down the street and someone cut me off and I was like, what if instead of getting really pissed, which I could easily do, what if instead I said, have a lovely day? And I started saying that to every single person who would quote unquote do any kind of road rage. And I would just say, I hope you have a wonderful day. And it just like allowed this sense of peace and just like almost like graciousness in the simple little things like driving. And it was such a beautiful little mindset shift. And I think I've created such an anchor in it now that I literally, whenever it happens, and I live in Chicago, that happens pretty often. And like, now it's just like, whenever that little thing happens, it's just like, I hope you have a lovely day. I'm sure something's going on. I hope you have a lovely day, you know?
And it's such an easy shift that what it does for us is it does two things. It's it brings us into the now, the moment right now. Because I mean, what we're doing when we get road rage, for me, anybody out there, I apologize. For me, I'm bringing up all of my history with that. I'm like, you don't respect me as a man. And like, it's like, I mean, it's like all of that, like, you know, that instead of just being like you're saying, focus in this moment. And we're like, this is about this now. It's like, have a lovely day. You know what I mean? And it also brings up just like how we can be aware and breathe through these moments.
And through anything, like, I mean, to tie this in, honestly, with everything going on in 2020, let's just look at 2020 as one big road rage. We can either get furious and say F you to the sky and to God and to the universe, whatever, insert whatever works here for you. But like, you can get super pissed, and it's easy. And I think we've all seen a lot of people do it. Or we can instead say, what can I learn from this? How can my resilience shine through this year? And just like, I think that some of my best business moves, and honestly, some of my best clients' moves have come out of this year, which is fascinating. And it's just like,
why is it fascinating? Why? I mean, it's a right. Like, why is it fascinating? I'm
that's
curious.
A wonderful question. No, that's a wonderful question. I think because when the world is very loud around us, it's so easy to meet them where we're at, or where they're at, excuse me. And instead to be like, no, I'm going to be the temperature. I'm going to be the thermostat here. I'm not going to be the thermometer where I'm going to go up and down depending on the scenario or depending on the people I'm surrounded with. I'm going to be the thermostat. I am set to happiness, fulfillment, success, joy, achievement. I'm set to that. And that is how I'm going to choose to live my life. And it's just like, I think when it's just, you know, it's a perfect little example that even when the world around you is maybe trying to sway you otherwise, you get to be in control, and you get to be in control.
Yeah, I love that. You know, I try to tell my coaches that I work with, or my clients that I work with, you know, it's like, I don't coach you where you're at. I know where you're at. I see that, but I coach you at what you're becoming.
Oh, that's good.
I coach you. I'm like, when I tell people, I was like, I had somebody on a call just on a few days ago, and I said, hey, slow down. He's like, what? I was like, you're about to get into the territory where you tell me your goals. If you tell me your goals, I'm going to hold you to them. I'm going to coach you at them. Right. And he was like, I was like, go for it. Cause if you do,
I love that you warn them. That's so good.
Because people think, well, once you tell me, and I know you might feel this way too, you know, but once you tell me your goals, you've put me on the hook too.
Oh yeah.
Right. And now I take this seriously. You've told me your hopes, your dreams, right? All that stuff. And now I'm on the hook with you. So if I let you off so easily, then what does that say about me? Right?
Oh yeah.
So I give him a little red light. I give him a little red light warning.
I might steal that if you don't mind. I really like that. That's so good.
This isn't mine. None of this is mine. Well, I mean, like, again, none of this is like my career. My career is not mine. My career is meant for me to share with other people so that they can get to their next level, right? None of this is this. We are here in these moments. You know, that's why I don't believe in competition. We're here in these moments so that we can help others vibrate higher, so that we can vibrate higher, so that we can raise our frequency. So still often, you know what I mean? Like, I hope you do.
I will. I definitely say that. Well, okay. I want to just touch on something you just said, which is, and I've noticed this with a lot of people who are very successful, which I would definitely put you in that category. They always say that I don't feel competition, or I don't believe in competition. So can you talk that out a little bit?
Yeah, you know, and that came a little bit with understanding both sides, business and from coaching and acting, that I really had to get to a place in acting where I understand there's healthy competition that helps me just like keep motivated, helps me strive and want more. Oh, you know, I can be more. But it also helped me, like, with my psyche, understand that sometimes they want vanilla, sometimes they want chocolate, sometimes they want strawberry, and this has nothing to do with you. So I had to remove my self-worth, remove my confidence out of this business, because they're making business decisions. I had to remove that piece so that I can show up for my kids, so I can show up for myself, so I can show up in a better place. I want to be clear, because I think what happens is people hear me say that and they don't think I feel or flash jealousy. where I don't flash hot or flash to my default settings, where my default settings are FUCK. They got that over me. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, I want to sometimes I do flash there, but I always like to remember that, DaJuan, and I tell my clients this as well, that I'm not responsible for my first thoughts. We're just not responsible for our first thoughts. Those are our default program settings. But we are responsible for our second thought and our third thought and our fourth thought and so forth, because, you know what I mean? That's what we've been talking about with those small stuff and all that other stuff. I'm sometimes going to go to my base level primal fight or fly. I'm going to go there, right? That's just what happens. But I also get the chance to breathe and then get out of that. Like, you don't really believe in that competition. Go you. And I've taken it so far to the point of, when I have other actor friends and I'm auditioning for a role, I'm like, you might be ready for this too. You should see if your reps can get you on that. You know what I mean? And people are like, what? Why would you do that? And I'm like, because if nobody can do DaJuan, right? They can't do what I'm doing. So if they go in there and they do Chris and they get it, then they must have wanted Chris.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and so I believe that. And just on the other side of coaching, it just felt like that was the right move. My coach that I coach with, who could have totally taken me under her wings and been like, you're direct competition, because I followed her career. Like, I'm not the reason. She is the reason I went to a certain certification program. Like, she's the reason that I was like, ooh, I want to do it. I'm going to model it after that. And so to work with her, she was like, you do exactly kind of like, she's like, so instead of competition, she's like, I want you to compete with me. Right. And it was like this whole like level of like, raise your bar. I'm going to give you all of my tools. And I just opened my eyes also to just remembering that there is no competition. Like how awesome it felt for somebody to fully take me under their wings and fully say, like, you know, like let me help you instead of let me fight you. Right. Ooh. Or let me be your adversary. And it felt so great. So when I have my coaches that I train or that I work with for my business, I make sure that I'm saying, I understand, you know, you guys are going to go off and do your own thing one day, but like, my goal here is to show up fully for you and hopefully be that light for you.
Oh, that's so good. Oh my gosh. I want to even tie into that. Like, I feel like the best moments in life and the most spike of growth that we see is always when we raise our own standards. And that can come from external resources, but it's a decision you have to make. And when you raise your own standards, you play at a different level. You hold yourself to a different accountability. You have different habits change immediately like that. And it's like, when you change and you raise that standard and you play, I've talked on the podcast before about playing at an outstanding level rather than just excellent, you will get a different way of thinking every single time. And I love that you have that with your coach. And I love that they were like, please model me, or please even compete with me. I love that. That's so beautiful. What a beautiful, healthy way of looking at it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I want to talk.
And you also have to, I just want to say just one little caveat to like tag along, I should say, to what you just said. Like, also remember that we have to decide several times. We have to keep deciding. And we think we make that one decision to be this way. And it's like, nope, I'm faced with this again. My default setting pops up. I was like, I'm going to decide again to do it this way. So it's a continual decision that it's kind of like love. When you're in a relationship, we have to like really recommit each time.
Oh yeah.
Like we think it's like, it's going to like rest on that laurel when the first, like, I love you. It's like, nope, we gotta recommit.
No, absolutely. Literally. One of the biggest, I think, aha moments I had in my own personal relationship with my partner is when it was like, I get to choose to love you every single day. It's a choice. You get to choose. Because no matter what, like, I care and like I care for them and stuff like that, but like choosing to love someone and that could mean a variety of different things for people. For me, that means like coming up and kissing him on the cheek. Or that means like giving him the space to work on his project and maybe do, like, I'm an acts of service love language person. So like doing something for him while he's like getting to chase his dream. Like, yes, I love it. I feel like I've met a lot of coaches who are acts of service and I have a theory, but
I'm like, you know what's sexy? Where you take out the trash. Oh, so sexy.
I'm like, I will cook dinner day in and day out if it means you get to do what you love. You take out the trash and I'm Get on the couch.
I'm like, yes.
Oh my
Small
God.
things, guys. Small things. Small things.
Small things. But I wanted to totally switch gears. But I wanted to ask
Okay.
you said on a podcast I recently heard that people are afraid to use the tools in their tool belt.
Yeah.
And you talked about that, and I was just like, so I want you to dive into why. Why are people afraid?
Because they might work.
Cats.
You know, listen, I think one of the big things about like, one, we feel like we don't know how to activate them. Let's just say that, right? Like we have all the tools. What we go out and we do is we collect all the wonderful Post-it notes. We have all the lists. We have all the thinking and the thoughts about it. And we feel good about that. But then we have to go execute it. Like, you know what I mean? Our lists are sexy. Our excuses are sexy. Like, it's like, I have done, right? Color coded and everything. And we're like, this is my jam. And what we don't realize, again, like I said in the beginning of this, that that's not the action. We have to remember that, yes, you don't want to use positivity. Yes, you don't want to use all those things, but we must. If you have it in your tool belt, if you really want to like activate it, like do it. Yep. Do it. And I also think there's a little bit of a stigma out there, right? That I have to get it right. That I have to, if I'm not positive all the time, then people are going to think that I'm not a good coach, right? And I like to say, sips coffee, right? I am not, I know people say this, and I probably should stop saying it this way. I am not a positive person. I just have more tools in my tool belt that get me out of ruts faster, that get me out of situations faster. My default setting for everybody out there is to go to deprecating on myself, to go to I'm just feeling bad about like where I've come from. My default setting is not, but I catch my spin cycle now faster. Do you know what I mean? I have more tools to be like, great. So you know that whatever it is, I just catch it a lot faster. You know what I mean? And so go, come. I see you. She's like, I'm chopping. Come on, let's get into it. I love it.
Tables up. I'm like, oh my God, I'm done. But like, so I like to call it the 90 rule. So we live. Let's say when we're fully in our default setting, we don't know how powerful the mind is. We can be in a shitty state easily for 90 weeks. Let's say that we'll go extreme. 90 years, we'll even say. That's a little too extreme, but a long time. But you start using the tools, and that 90 weeks turns into 90 days. And then you use them a little bit more. You get more habitual with them. You get more excited and learn new things and see what works, see what doesn't. That 90 days turns into suddenly 90 hours. And then you use it more and more, 90 minutes, and then 90 seconds. Like, literally, I love that you say that you don't like to look at, like, you're not a positive thinker. Because it's like, I honestly don't know if I believe in, like, quote unquote, the power of positivity. I believe in the fact that I know the things that will get me out of my ruts in 90 seconds or less. And like, it's like you say, I can easily, like, you know, like a bad thing can happen and I can go off the deep end. I could easily go off the deep end for 90 hours. But instead, I use the tools in my tool belt. I love how you phrase that. That is so good, so that you can get back on track faster.
That's it. That's all we're doing is getting back on track a little bit faster. So when people say like, oh, DaJuan, you're so positive. It's like, no, I'm just very active with my mindset. I am very in tune with the barometer of like something's ick right now. And it sucks. And I don't try to like shift myself out of it faster than I need to. Like if I'm in, I'm like, that's okay, great. Sit in it for a little bit if you have to, but now we're going to shift out of it. Like I don't want to be, you know, in that place for 90 years, as you put it. You know, as you put it there. I work harder. I work a little bit harder. I work on my mindset. I work on really disrupting the soil that those roots are planted in, right? Like, oh, you're hurt because of this. Oh, you did, right? This triggered this, you know? Anyway, yeah.
And that all comes from learning more about yourself and becoming aware of what those things are. Like, I like to say going out and being a positive thinker is like looking at a garden full of weeds and just closing your eyes and saying, there are no weeds in my garden. When in actuality, you get the roots, you dig them out, and then you say, now there's no weeds in my garden. So maybe a weed might pop up every now and again, but you know the tool to rip it out of the ground. So it's like, you're able to just do that. And I love that, but it all stems from just becoming aware of what those points are for you.
And positivity gets a bad rap, right?
Yeah.
I think positivity gets a bad rap because people think you're supposed to like walk around and be like, oh, I'm so sunshine. I think positivity gets a bad rap there. And I think Zig Ziglar said a quote where it's kind of like, just like showering, we do it every day. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it wears off. The same thing about like positivity, motivation, inspiration. Like, you know, it might wane a little bit, but you go out there and you fill your cup again, or you fill your saucer, you know, you do that again, and it will be there, you know? So if people look at me and they're like, you're a positive guy, I love your energy. Like, that's something that I have to feed every morning.
I was going to say, this is a perfect segue. Speaking of filling your cup. So like on that same note, what does morning routine mean to you? How did you develop yours? Was it all at once? Was it let's dive into morning routine.
Let's definitely dive into morning routine, because I think what people think, and this is going to be the key here, they think they have to set their morning routines in concrete. You do not have to set your morning routines in concrete. You just have to set them. Right? And if you don't set it in concrete, but you set it really in some molasses so it sticks, that's good, but it still can change, and it will change. And it needs to probably change a little bit every once in a while to keep it fresh for you. Totally. Right? But my morning routine came a long time ago when I started meditating and transcendental meditation. And I used to get up in the morning and, you know, spend 20 minutes with meditating. I used to do Oprah and Deepak. That was just like, oh gosh, for like, you know, 7+ years. I used to do that, get up at 6 in the morning. And before I adopted my kids, they came to live with us. I used to do, and I still do a little bit of, is I get up at 5 in the morning, you know, before pandemic times, guys. And I would do yoga. I would do yoga. I would go to a place and do yoga, be there by 5:45, and I would do yoga, and that would, you know, be my part of my morning routine. What I'm not saying here is a clear takeaway is the reason I get up in the morning so early, the reason I have this morning routine set is because I need to feed my soul. I need to feed my mind first thing in the morning, right? If I jump into my computer or my phone or social media or anything like that, what I've done is I've switched it off and I've gone to somebody else's wants and desires of my day, of my life. And what happens is my whole day is shot. Even my kids, you know, even my kids, that's why I try to get up earlier than them. Today I got up, my alarm clock went off at 6:15, right? Make coffee, go sit in my office, and I started reading a little bit. I actually did a Instagram live about my morning this morning. And because even if you just get one little passage down and you sit and think about it, you are setting your day up for success. Yeah. And that's why it's so important for me, you know, to get this morning routine. And then I stop, I do that, and I come over to my desk and I write out my day. Great, this is what I need to get done today. And this is the Tony Robbins thing, I know when my prime hours are. My prime hours have always been in the morning. It's when I get most done. You get me. And by the way, yes, my prime hours are in the morning. But as the late morning comes along, afternoon comes along, my channel capacity is off. Like I can't. I start to see it dip. I start to see, you know, everything wane. And I'm like, okay, cool. I know I got to get all the heavy lifting done in the morning because the rest of the day is going to be interesting. That was a long answer. Again, I give long answers.
I love it. No, it's so insightful. I love it. I actually was listening to a podcast this morning because part of my morning routine is always moving my body and plugging in and listening to something that inspires me every single day, no matter what. And they were talking about how you eat the frog in the morning. Yes. And they said that, and I was like, what the fuck? That's
Mark Twain.
Mark Twain, exactly. Yeah. And so they explained it, and for listeners, it's you do the hardest part of your day, the most quote unquote intimidating, we'll say, first thing in the morning. So that got me thinking, and I was like, wow, like that is such a great thing to do. Cause I'm always someone, I love the color coding. I love like knowing exactly what I want to do. And I was like, I want to always put my hardest chunk, because I only chunk my day into 3 parts, put my hardest chunk in the morning.
Or most important chunk. It doesn't have to be hard, right? It doesn't have to be hard. It's just a perception, right? Because then it's like, oh, okay. But then what you go to it, and you probably coach this way as well, we go to it with this heaviness. Right? We go to it with this like, and no, it could be like, this could be fun. All right, great. I got my Think Bigger Summit coming up. Let me make sure that I do that part in the morning. And I love that you talk about, Nicole, state, right? Your state is so important. That's why I catch that. And I'm like, we don't want to think of it as hard because
I love
we gotta,
that.
like, do a little dance and get to it.
Literally, it's so funny you caught, and I so appreciate that because I just got off a call with a client and we talked about the word ease and how being, oh my gosh.
It's my word of the year.
Oh my goodness.
My word of the year.
Can you explain to listeners who didn't just see
that? Oh gosh, they can't see. Is this not visual? Are you guys not going to see? I look so good. I took a shower today. Oh my God.
Shirt's fantastic.
My shirt's, man. We got to take a picture of this so we can put this up at least.
Oh God.
So in my Think Bigger tribe, I do what's called a word of the year exercise with everybody. And this comes from myintent.com or .org, my intent. And it is literally for the past 5 or 6 years, I have a North Star, a compass word that gets me through the year. It helps me a little bit different than New Year's resolutions or just those things that weren't working for me. And so this year it felt like last year was such a uplifting year, a year that I was like getting through the sludge. I was like really like growing a lot. And I was like, what can this year encompass? And it was ease. And I think it's really important that to point out that this year has been, we call the dumpster fire year, right? Right?
Yeah.
And my word is ease. And so a lot of it, I find myself going back to, how can I do this with ease? How can I sit back and am I trying to fit a square peg in a round hole? You know what I mean? And like, so it brings me back, and I wear it on my neck because one, you always know it's there, but two, because I used to do yoga a lot more than I do it now, honestly. And when I would downward dog, it hit me. And it would remind me that it's like, right, that's the universe ease or upgrade or, focus I had a year or, just the different years, what I'm working with. So.
I love that, like snap at it. I have a similar thing on my right foot. I have tattooed the words "live with passion" because I went through my first big seminar. Like I said earlier, I grew up in the seminar world. My parents both worked for Tony Robbins for many years. It was I always like to put this in there though. Like my parents could have so easily have been engineers and me gotten curious and gotten to absorb that, and I could have easily been an engineer. But they were in this personal development field, and I got curious, I got excited, and I started listening and absorbing. And I do believe wholeheartedly that's where I am today, and that's why I am where I am today. But I got to do my first official Unleash the Power Within when I was 18, and we walked across fire, and it was so freaking epic. And the big word of the seminar is live with passion. And so me being a little defiant 18-year-old, I was like, I'm going to get a tattoo. And my dad was pissed. But it was one of those things that I wanted it on the top of my foot. Because when we get sad, when we get stressed, we get small. I knew my head went down. And I knew that little visual reminder was like, nope, that is not this person that you subscribe to anymore. You are someone who lives with passion. You're someone who always drives herself forward. And I love that you have the word ease because that's been a lot of my word this year. So I'm pretty sure we're the same person. This is great. But
twins.
But to be able to have that same sort of drive, but have it come from a place of ease is a totally different energy than someone who's grinding the pavement constantly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. Yeah. We're twins, remember?
I should have guessed. Well, okay. So I want to talk about Bruce. Because this might be my favorite thing that I've ever heard you talk about. And first of all, who is Bruce? How did Bruce come about?
Bruce. One of the things that we did in our my coaching certification was we named the inner critic. We named the voice that's in our head. We named the gremlin, as we called it. And I like to think about if you're as old as I am, you remember the 1984 Gremlin movie, where we had a little mogwai that was so cute and so fresh, right? That, you know, like it's a little, right? I know it's going over your head. People just think about like this cute little teddy bear that we have that's in our head, and that's us. We're innocent. We're like these beautiful people that like we really do have our best, you know, interest at heart. But like in that movie, whenever you get water or you feed it after midnight, then they would turn into this vicious, like you know, version of you. And it's like, you got to go watch it. It's really good. And that is that gremlin. That is that inner critic for me. That is that voice that sounds a little bit similar to my voice, but is always trying to keep me down. It is always telling me that I'm not good enough. It is always telling me nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Why are you out there saying it? And what we did and what I did is I named that voice, because when you name it, what you get to understand, it is just a part of you. It is not all of you. Right? And you take it a step further and you start to talk to it. So I talk to Bruce, and sometimes when I'm like, oh my God, Nicole's gonna think I am such a quack or whatever like that. Oh, hey, Bruce, I didn't see you sneak up, right? Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah, you know what, that might be true, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do it anyway, because I am, you know, however you wanna talk to Bruce, that, or your gremlin, or naming it. And it's very important that we name it, because if you do not talk to yourself, yourself will talk to you, and yourself will be louder. Your inner voice will be louder, and it will be so sneaky. It will sound just like you, and you will think that it's you, but it is not you. It is not you. And it is there. It was there, and it was created at some point where you needed to be kept safe in some part of your life. And that is okay. But we are older, we are wiser, hopefully. We are doing things, and we can stick up for ourselves. We can just tell Bruce, thank you so much for keeping me safe during that time when I needed you the most. I got this. I got this. You know, and it's not about being mean to it. It's really about like just talking to it. And because you asked about Bruce, and because I wish this were a visual, everybody listening, I'm going to show her a picture of Bruce.
Oh yes, please.
Oh, look at,
is that the music?
It is, right? So one of the things that I also take it a step further is I put a visual to Bruce so that like I can see it. Sometimes we're like, oh, it's just this voice out here that, but no, if I can see Bruce on my shoulder, like sitting on a couch, like, and I'm like, fucking Bruce.
I love that he's also like sitting on the couch, like just like being like kind
chilling.
of a dumpster fire of a human. Like I love that. How did you come up with the name Bruce? Was it just something that dropped in, or?
It was something that dropped in, but like, so for anybody out there that's like, I want to name my person, what you cannot do, I guess I should be a little bit more responsible about this. What you cannot do is name it anybody's anybody's name in your life that has any period, like, or anybody. It can't be like that teacher that did you wrong, or your baby cousin's sister. Like, it can't be any of that. So it's just a name that you named that is not charged by anything. People name it Fluffy. People name it like, you know, whatever you want to name it. I've heard so many names. The Ugly Duckling. You know, I've heard a lot of my clients do it that way as well. And it's just a name that drops in for you, and people get stressed out. What if I name it the wrong name? Don't worry about that. You're naming like your inner critic. It's okay.
Yeah. Like it'll be fine. Like, no, oh my goodness.
It'll be fun.
That's so.
And we have more than one sometimes.
Oh yes. Oh my goodness.
I have a whole caravan sometimes that show up with different things. There's Amy, like, do you know what I mean? I don't talk about that, like, you know, but who is always talking about me in fitness. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my! I love that you have different ones, because I don't hear that super often. Yeah. Like for different is it for different areas of your life? Is it for different situations?
Sometimes the voice sounds different, right? And so when the voice sounds a little bit different, it's in our job. This is going to sound crazy, you guys. Like, maybe you should see somebody. And I will continue. But it's just about like, it sometimes that voice sounds a little bit different, and it has a different message than that normal tone of, you're not good enough, you're not going to get this. It's a little bit harsher. It's a little bit something. And I was like, it sounds like somebody else is talking to me. All right. I know, guys, it sounds weird, but like, give it a shot. I say, give it a shot with one before you knock it, because it will make all the difference if you actually talk to it, and you actually, first of all, be aware of it.
Yep.
You can't change anything that we're not aware of.
I love one of the things I always say to my clients. I haven't had them name it, but I might steal that from you. Like,
Please.
I think just having, I sometimes will just have them like pipe up and just be like, okay, go ahead and repeat after me. Limiting belief. Thank you for sharing. Quiet down. It's my time to step into the light. Like just over and over and over again, like limiting belief. Thank you for sharing. Cause you have to acknowledge it. Cause it's just like a little toddler. It just needs to be acknowledged. It needs to know that it got its like shit taken care of. And then you just say, quiet down, please. It's my turn. And just like having that, it's just, I've seen the shifts, like, and as a coach, you'll know what I mean. That like shift of like, they stood up just a little bit taller. Their eyes got a little bit brighter. And it's just like, once you just take that away, and it'll keep coming back, but once you just each and every single time, just like let it have its moment and then take it away.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. We're doing about the same thing. And what I do is I just call them out. I'm like, wait. Who said that? Who said that? And so all of a sudden they're like, oh, Bruce said that.
Yep.
Right. It's like, and they start to, distinguish between like, I see what's going on, so that, we have this tangible person. Right. And because some people don't really, for me, and maybe it's the clients I'm working with, don't always get the limiting belief.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
The wording of it. Right. So I find a workaround and a way in where it's like, great. And since we're actors, we're visual, we understand movies, I can reference that movie and I can say, go watch it. And people are like, I get it.
I'm going to have to go watch it now. This is very interesting.
Just look it up. Maybe even if you don't want to watch the movie, look up Gremlins, right? And look up a Mogwai and then look up the Gremlin version of it. And it's like, ooh.
Like, I smell what you're stepping in now. I see.
Yeah.
Oh my. So I actually, speaking of actors and stuff, how did you, like I've said several times, you are a very successful actor. How did you
thank you.
You're welcome. Right? But I mean, that's no small feat. How did you get to be where you are today?
I get asked this question a lot, and
I bet.
I do. And I understand why it's asked. I totally do. But what I want people to hear is it's not just one thing, right? It was a lot of things that equaled where I'm at. And I think starting with what I can start to pinpoint that might be tangible for my clients, might be tangible for anybody listening, is number one, I was accountable to somebody else besides myself, right? And that is whether working with a coach, whether working with my therapist, whether working with somebody who were a couple steps ahead of me, like a mentor, I was accountable to somebody else besides myself, because you will always pay AT&T before you pay yourself. Right? It is just the way it happened. And I don't know why we're that programmed, but you're going to pay that cell phone bill before you save $100, right? Most of us.
Yes.
I'm going to break it down even further. Like, we're going to pay that Visa credit card that we owe them before we save that money. And so me being accountable, I just start to use that towards working towards myself. You know what I mean? And those are people who have a better zone of genius than I do. And so that's definitely number one. And number two is like working on my mindset. I got here because I worked on my mindset. And when I would get critical feedback, right? When I would get critical feedback, I started to, big one, I started to process it from my business actor hat, right? Instead of my actor hat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Yes.
And my actor hat is just by itself is emotional. I have my hopes and dreams of like what it means to be an actor. When I get a speech, this is what I'm going to say. It means all of that. But from my processing it from my business hat, I'm like, great. What do I need to do to get to the next level? How can I take this and then put my stank on it? Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
make it make sense to move forward. And I really think a lot of us don't get critical. We don't start thinking about it. What we start to do is like, that person said they didn't like when I raised my eyebrow at this part. I'm like, no, great. Let's move this let's let this work for ourselves. And I do that with my business as well.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's so like, speaking as a former actor, and honestly, even anyone who is a human being who wants to like, who's creating something or doing anything, we're all so afraid of that, like almost rejection. I'll say broadly like that. We're so afraid of the rejection when in actuality, it might've just been, I wanted to go with that person instead of you. And that doesn't mean anything against my worth. My worth as a human being, as an actor, as a coach, as any other part of my identification, it's still at the same worthiness level, even though someone else chose something else. Like we attach so much of our worth to our career and our passion, when in actuality, it's like, once we just detach the worth a little bit, it's like you said, that critic hat comes on, and it just like, it starts to make sense rather than feel so emotional. I love that.
I would just add the third one would be that I got out of it early on, that got out of my way early on, and just started to believe that as we're quoting people, it talks of, I can't be a secret and be a success. Right? You cannot be a secret and be a success. And that goes for me as a coach, and that goes for me as an actor. And that came from Allison Bird, who is an awesome coach as well. That early on, when I wasn't already big or bigger in my career, and I was on my first couple of bookings, I started putting it out there. Because what we're fearful is that the people who are at our same level are going to judge us and think, who are they to like shine when they're not blah, blah. And I was like, who am I not to shine? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so what I started doing is putting myself out there. So even though I was a co-star on BOSCH the first season, I started treating it like I was one of those main people on the show, because I had booked the main show, and I would talk about it that way on Twitter. I would talk about it that way in my life. And so when I was putting it out there, other people started to see that. And what we don't really step into is that work begets work. That when people, they see you out there, they see you doing stuff, they're like, oh, great, this person, oh, I can call on that person. But if you're in the corner, like hiding your success, you're in the corner not like shining, then nobody can know about you. No. Nobody can, like, you think, how are they going to find you if you are in the corner of your awesome home office that looks so clean? They are not. They are not. And so I really got really big on that. Same thing about being a coach, you know? I got out there. I was like, you know, we got to get out there and not be afraid, one, to fail, but also put ourselves out there. Get on freaking Instagram Live. You know, who cares if all these other people see us and they see you failing? That's what people say is about them. What we hear is about us.
Yeah. Oh my God. Drop the mic. That was so good. Like, seriously, I don't even know. I can't even follow up. That was so perfectly put. Like, I do have one question. So then for someone who is maybe realizing like, okay, I have been really quiet. I have been kind of shying away from the spotlight. What is an exercise or what is an action tool that you would give them to take a step in?
First of all, what I would do is get everything out of your head, right? I think when we get things out of our head and get them on paper, it locks it in a different way, a whole different way. Because in our head, it's swirling around. You're like, I got so much to do. And you write it down. You're like, oh, it's only dry cleaning and pick up food.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, get it out of your head and then do baby steps, one little step. For example, let's put this in tangible steps for them. If I decided that like social media is so huge and I don't want to get on Twitter or want to get on Instagram, great. Today might look like I'm just going to open an account. Yeah. Right? Next week might look like your goal is to just follow a couple of people, not respond, right? But breaking it down into little baby steps and start to see where you can do it. Like, where can I push myself and do a little bit more? Ooh, today I'm going to respond. You know what I mean? And then I'm going to put the phone down, right? And so breaking it down into tangible baby steps, but you have to step. Yeah. We must step. And so if you see this as like, I'm so fearful, oh, I don't understand that stuff, that's when we got to dig a little bit deeper. And I can't like give you a one size fits all. We got to dig a little bit deeper. Like, what are you expecting here? What's going on here? I'm curious about why this is so triggering for you. Yeah. Tell me about that. You know, I would get into that stuff and we would get into the coaching stuff of it because it's really important. I have a client, just like I said, a couple of days ago, who was just like, it came down to wanting to get it perfect, wanting to make sure they had something to say out there that other people I was like, how do you know what other people want to hear? That must be so cool. You have a mic, you have this crystal ball, you know what other people want, you know? Yeah. So what we did was we broke it down to steps where it was like, we put a plan, you know, and we put an action, and he's accountable to me now.
Oh my God. I love that so much. I always like to say, like, when you're in Google Maps, you have to put in an address. And if like, I use this in an example in a podcast a few episodes ago.
Oh, I love this.
If I put in the address of Chicago, Google Maps is going to be like, where the fuck do you want to go? Like, Chicago's huge. Like, what are you talking about? But if I put in the Art Institute on Magnificent Mile, it's going to know exactly every single little twist and turn I need to take to get there. And a lot of us don't like look at things so broadly, and like you said, our mind gets so overwhelmed, when in actuality, when we chunk it down and we make it that little teeny tiny, when we make it that really specific thing, our brain starts to connect the dots. And you're not going to know the whole dots. Like I always like to say that, like one of my favorite quotes is, you do not have to know the whole staircase. You only have to take the first step. It's Martin Luther King.
Some of us beat ourselves up about that. We get like, you don't even let the dream happen. You know, you're not even like romanticizing getting to the Art Institute in Chicago. You're not even like, oh my God, what's gonna happen when I get there? I'm gonna see all of this stuff. You start to cut yourself off at the knees because you start to figure out the how. The how will show up on a need to know basis. You just need the first step.
Literally.
All the time with my actors, like if somebody told me that when I shot my short film, they showed me all steps 1 through 25, I would never have done it.
I would have been so overwhelmed. Oh my God. Like I would have been like, I have to do what? Like,
oh my God. And then that's going to happen?
Like, right? It blows my mind that people, because it's a need for certainty. We've conditioned certainty in ourselves so highly. And I think this, like, but when it comes to achieving a goal, big or small, no matter what, that goal's uncertain. Like the steps, but the best part of achieving something is not ticking it off the list and saying, hooray, I did it. It's the person you get to become along the way. And you are not going to know who you're going to become along the way until you actually take the steps and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to apologize to everybody out there. Nicole and I get really excited, and I notice that we go into our higher registers. We're like, I don't know why you bring that out in me, because, you know, I like to,
oh my God.
I'm a theater trained actor, and like I get in my lower register.
I'm going to look at the audio clip and it's going to be like,
oh, they got excited there. I see.
Okay. I see. Oh my God. I have to play some audio. Oh, I'll say this
because everybody, there's not a lot of time. I think that other coaches get to sit with other coaches like this and just like, you know, discuss and talk. And like, it feels great that we get to do this. And so when you find somebody that is vibrating on your level, that is me, you know, that is up at that frequency, it gets a little bit exciting. So, you know, I understand it.
And maybe this is such a biased thing, but when I listen to people on podcasts who are vibrating at that same frequency, I'm like, I want to join the party. Like I start to get so inspired, and I notice my frequency starts vibrating higher. So I hope, if anything, it's like you said, I hope that if anything, the elevator goes down and you guys get to pick it up and keep going with us. Like, oh man, what a beautiful tie-in. I could talk to you for literally hours, DaJuan. It is ridiculous, but I know you have like stuff to do today. So
I got life.
I love it. I do want to finish off with 2 segments. And the first one is, how did you get in your own way this week?
How did I get in my own way?
How did you get in your own way?
I mean, right? It's like, well, because I think it's important to know that I always get in my own way, right? And I always stop myself, and I always, you know, forget all my tools, and then I have to remind myself. And I say, I got my own way with parenting this week. And it was really a big deal for me that I got into this place where I started yelling at my kids. And I don't mean to yell, but after like the 17th fight of give it back, you know, that they're doing, I'm like, you know, but you get in your own way because you don't remember that your goal is, you don't remember that your dream is that you love on these kids, that, you know what I mean, that you want the highest for them too. And so, you know, I just forgot, and it just took me a second to remember that, oh, right. They need to get out of the house. Oh, we need to walk around. We need to get our space. And so I think I got my own way that way. I hope you meant that way. That's what I was thinking.
No, I totally did. I totally did.
Okay.
I want to piggyback on that real quick, because my father was a life coach, or is a life coach. He still is. And I just want to commend you so much, because I can see that, like, I mean, your kid popped on, one of the kids popped on beforehand, and I'm just like, wow, like the fact that they get to see you and model after you, and having that figure in my life for my father, like it's so beautiful. And I'm just, I love when kiddos have coaches as parents, or even as mentor figures in their life, because it's just like the stuff that they learn and absorb at such a young age. I still can't even comprehend some of the things that I learned when I was like 2 because of the environment that my parents had put my sister and I in. So I see that I mean, I've talked to you for a full 45 minutes. So, but I want to say like, that is just such a cool thing. That's such a cool thing.
I think they're teaching me so much too. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the cool thing is like, you know, when they get hurt or when they do something, instead of, you know, I just look at them and I'm like, I'm so sorry that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, tell me about it. And just for them like to say, tell me about it. They're like, what? And this and this.
Yeah.
And I think that is learned. That is all coaching. That's all, you know, me just sitting there and just listening to these little beings that want to be heard
Mm-hmm.
and are usually stifled by us. And I say me. So, okay,
totally.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're totally fine. So the second question is, what is a small goal worth celebrating this week that you achieved?
I think it's so important that we do this often, that we celebrate our victories. And a big goal I had, honestly, was I'm excited about it. I got to be on my coach's podcast this week because I hit a goal that I never hit before, and I hit it because that coach never gave up on me, right? And so for me to be sitting in that seat, fully prepared. I had my notes, I had my things, and I'm fully prepared. And it just felt great. And it feels like, I'm still celebrating, and I think we should celebrate.
That's why I have this one. And I started it several podcasts ago, where it was just like, we don't take the time to celebrate those little things. It's like our eyes, and this podcast specifically is for overachievers, our eyes are always on the quote unquote prize. And that quote unquote prize is checking that goal off the list. When in actuality, it's like I said, it's a teeny tiny little things along the way that's where we get to celebrate who we're becoming. And so I love that. Oh my goodness.
We call it the dangling carrot. Right? And like, we are always moving the dangling carrot. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, go get this. And we get it. And we get there. We're like, okay, next goal. And I'm like, where's the carrot almost?
My dad actually pointed that out within me, because I had celebrated, just recently, I ran my first ever half marathon, and I finished and I was like, it was fine. And my dad was like, I'm sorry. Like, you've been working for this for 6 months. Like, excuse me, you celebrate it. And I was like, you're right. And then I let myself feel it. And now it's like, oh my gosh, that actually felt like a really big deal.
So good.
It feels so good. And we don't let ourselves do that. It's just, my goodness.
We don't.
Oh man. DaJuan, last but least, where can people find you? Where can people find you and learn from your brilliance constantly? Oh my goodness.
Well, I hope they will find me by listening to your podcast, and everything will be linked underneath. That'd be 100%. Really awesome. But also, I'm at Anything Think Bigger Coaching. ThinkBiggerCoaching.com, Think Bigger on Instagram, Think Bigger on Twitter. And, you can find me on any of those places. The Think Bigger Tribe, if you're an actor, would be fantastic. And, I love, say hi. Don't just like come and be a fly on the wall. Say hi, say I heard you here. And, maybe something that you learned, or that, a big takeaway from this podcast, because, Nicole and I were working overtime. We were dropping mad truth bombs. Bombity bomb bombs.
You heard the screaming in your ears, guys.
You heard it.
Oh my gosh.